Eric Donovan sat at his kitchen table, coffee growing cold beside him as he read the letter for the third time. The paper trembled slightly in his hands. Eviction notice. The words made his stomach turn. "This has to be a mistake," he muttered to himself, looking around the modest ranch-style home he and Sophia had purchased 3 years ago. Everything was in perfect order, just as his wife had left it before her deployment. The notice from the Starlight Estates Homeowners Association cited unauthorized modifications to the property and specifically mentioned the small shed Eric had built in the backyard 6 months ago. The shed housed his astronomy equipment, telescopes and monitoring devices that connected to his work computer. As a civilian consultant for NASA's Deep Space Communications Array, Eric often worked from home, analyzing signal patterns from the outer reaches of the solar system. He glanced at the framed photo of Sophia in her Navy uniform, taken on the day of her promotion to lieutenant commander. She looked so proud, so determined. Now she was somewhere in deep space aboard the USS Constellation, one of Earth's newest space carriers. They had video calls scheduled once a week, but the next one wasn't for 3 more days. The doorbell rang, startling Eric from his thoughts. He opened the front door to find his neighbor, Patty Washington, holding a plate of cookies. "I saw the HOA van parked outside earlier," she said, her friendly face creased with concern. "Everything okay?" Eric showed her the notice as they moved to the living room. Patty, a retired Air Force intelligence officer, read it carefully. "This is ridiculous," she said finally. "That shed barely stands out. Frank over on Orion Drive has a workshop twice that size and no one's bothered him." "They're giving me 7 days to remove it or face an emergency hearing," Eric explained. "Sophia won't even be back for 3 weeks. Patty frowned. "Gerald, Prescott's behind this, I bet. Ever since he became HOA president, he's been on a power trip." "I followed all the county building codes," Eric said. "I even checked that the HOA bylaws didn't prohibit structures for scientific equipment." "Something's not right," Patty agreed. "Prescott's never been this aggressive before." Later that afternoon, Eric decided to visit the HOA office directly. The Starlight Estates Management Building sat at the entrance to the subdivision, a small brick structure with too many flags outside. Inside, a receptionist with professionally styled hair looked up from her computer. "I need to speak with Mr. Prescott about this notice," Eric said, placing the paper on her desk. "Mr. Prescott is in meetings all day," she replied without checking any schedule. "You'll need to address your concerns at the hearing." "Can I at least schedule the hearing for when my wife returns?" "She's deployed with the Navy," the receptionist smiled thinly. "The bylaw violations require immediate attention. The hearing is already set for this Friday at 7 p.m. Eric left the office feeling uneasy. On his way home, he drove slowly through the neighborhood, noticing details he'd overlooked before. 3 houses had small signs in their yards, under contract, all from the same real estate company. All were located in a rough circle around his block. That evening, Eric pulled up the subdivision plans on his computer. Using skills from his NASA work, he plotted the locations of the 3 houses for sale and his own property. They formed an almost perfect square. Curious, he overlaid the plot with geological survey data from the county records. Something unusual appeared. Faint energy readings beneath all 4 properties, too regular to be natural. His phone buzzed with a text from Patty. "Talked to Kim Martinez on Solar Lane. She got an eviction notice too. Something about her fence. Height." Eric texted back. "Can you find out if anyone on Nebula Court or Meteor Avenue got notices?" While waiting for a response, Eric used his NASA security clearance to access satellite imagery of their subdivision. The regular images showed nothing unusual, but when he switched to spectral analysis, he nearly dropped his coffee. Clear energy. Signatures formed a perfect geometric pattern beneath the 4 properties, including his. His secure work tablet chimed with an incoming message. It was from Dr. Allen at NASA headquarters. "Interesting signals from your home monitoring station last night. Can you verify if equipment functioning properly?" Eric checked his shed equipment logs. At 2:13 a.m. while he was sleeping, his instruments had detected a brief subspace pulse, technology that shouldn't exist on Earth. According to the peace treaty with the Arcturus Confederation, Earth's new alien allies, such technology was restricted to diplomatic channels. Patty's reply came through, "Yes, both streets have houses with notices. All minor violations suddenly being enforced." Eric's mind raced. 6 properties now, forming a hexagonal pattern. He overlaid the pattern onto maps of known subspace communication nodes. The match was unmistakable. The configuration resembled Centauri amplification technology. The Centauri Imperium was a xenophobic alien faction, hostile to Earth's alliance with Arcturus. Someone was trying to establish a covert communication array right in the middle of their suburban neighborhood. Eric needed to contact Sophia, but their next scheduled call wasn't secure enough for this information. He drafted an encrypted message using their personal code system and sent it through NASA's secure channel, marking it for relay to the USS Constellation. The next morning, Eric was in his shed checking equipment when a black SUV parked across the street. 2 men in business suits watched his house. When he waved, they didn't wave back. By afternoon, Gerald Prescott himself appeared at Eric's door. "Mr. Donovan," Prescott said with a tight smile, "I thought I might save us both some trouble. Northern Star Development has expressed interest in purchasing several properties in this area, including yours. They're prepared to offer 20% above market value." "I'm not interested in selling," Eric replied. Prescott's smile vanished. "Then I suggest you prepare for Friday's hearing. The board doesn't look kindly on violations that could affect property values." After Prescott left, Eric noticed the black SUV was gone too. He immediately called Patty. "They offered to buy my house," he told her. "A company called Northern Star Development." "That's suspicious," Patty said. "Let me make some calls." Eric returned to his shed, carefully examining his equipment. If his suspicions were correct, the entire neighborhood might be in danger. Someone was using the HOA as cover for something much bigger than garden sheds and fence heights. In the distance, thunder rumbled across the afternoon sky. Eric looked up, wondering where exactly the USS Constellation was and how long it would take for his message to reach Sophia. Whatever was happening, he had the feeling they were running out of time. Eric spent the next morning gathering evidence. He spread maps and printouts across his dining room table, connecting dots with red marker. The pattern was clear now. 6 properties in Starlight Estates formed a perfect hexagon, and each homeowner had received eviction notices for minor violations. In the center of the hexagon was the community park, an area that no one would question being dug up for landscaping improvements. Patty arrived just before noon with a folder under her arm. Her face was serious as she laid out her findings. "Northern Star Development was formed 3 months ago," she said. "Their corporate filings list addresses that don't exist, and their executives are ghosts, no social media, no history." Eric wasn't surprised. "Shell company? Almost certainly. But I called in a favor from my Air Force days." Patty pulled out a grainy photo showing Gerald Prescott meeting with a tall, thin man in an expensive suit. "This was taken last month at a restaurant downtown. The man with Prescott is Victor Lane, supposedly a real estate investor. But my contact ran facial recognition. He's actually Vincent Larson, former military intelligence discharged 5 years ago for selling classified information." Eric studied the photo. "Around the time of first contact with the Arcturus Confederation." "Exactly." Patty tapped the table for emphasis. "Whatever's happening, it started when Earth officially joined the galactic community." Eric's secure tablet chimed. A message from NASA headquarters. "Unusual energy fluctuations detected in your area last night. Satellite pass scheduled for 1500 hours. Stand by for data." "We need to move quickly," Eric said. "The HOA hearing is tomorrow evening. If they vote to evict us, Northern Star could start buying up these properties within days." Patty looked thoughtful. "We need more information about what's under our homes. My cousin works for the county water department. Let me see if she can pull up the underground surveys from when they installed new pipes last year." While Patty made her calls, Eric's home system alerted him to movement outside. Through the window, he spotted the same black SUV from yesterday parked across the street. This time, one of the men had stepped out and appeared to be taking pictures of Eric's house with a device that definitely wasn't a standard camera. Eric quickly closed the blinds. His secure line to NASA might be compromised. He needed another way to communicate with Sophia. An idea struck him. Eric pulled out an old ham radio from the closet, technology so outdated that modern surveillance might overlook it. With some modifications, he could bounce a signal off the moon to reach the lunar relay station. From there, it might reach the USS Constellation. By mid-afternoon, Patty returned with underground survey maps. Together, they spread them across the floor. "Look at this," she said, pointing to unusual formations under each of the 6 properties. "These aren't natural rock formations. They're too regular, too symmetric." Eric compared them to the NASA data he'd received. They're resonance points. If activated together, they'd form a powerful subspace transmitter, strong enough to send signals across the galaxy. "To the Centauri Imperium?" Patty asked. Eric nodded grimly. Earth's new alliance with Arcturus threatens Centauri expansion. They'd pay anything for inside information on our defenses. As night fell, Eric finished modifying the ham radio. He encoded a message explaining everything they'd discovered and sent it bouncing toward the moon. Whether it would reach Sophia was anyone's guess. Just as he powered down the radio, headlights swept across the front of the house. Eric peered through the blinds. Gerald Prescott was walking up the driveway, accompanied by the man from the photos, Vincent Larson, and one of the men from the SUV. The doorbell rang. Eric signaled Patty to hide their evidence while he answered. "Mr. Donovan," Prescott said with a tight smile. "I hope we're not interrupting. This is Mr. Lane from Northern Star Development, and his associate, Mr. Smith." Eric didn't invite them in. "It's late, Mr. Prescott." "We wanted to improve our offer," Larson said smoothly. 30% above market value, cash deal, closing in 7 days. "And if I'm still not interested?" Larson's smile didn't reach his eyes. "The HOA hearing tomorrow will likely not go in your favor. You'd be forced to sell anyway, but at a much lower price." "Is that a threat?" "Simply stating facts," Prescott cut in. "The board has already reviewed your case." "That's interesting," Eric replied. "Since the hearing hasn't happened yet, I wonder what the other homeowners would think about a rigged process." "Mr. Donovan," Larson said, his voice hardening, "there are bigger things at play than your little garden shed, things that concern national security." "Funny you should mention national security," came Patty's voice from behind Eric. She had her phone raised, recording the conversation. "As a retired Air Force intelligence officer, I'm very interested in how a discharged military operative selling classified information defines national security." Larson's face darkened. "You have no idea what you're involved in." "Actually, we do," Eric said. "Subspace communication nodes, Centauri technology, an unauthorized listening post in the middle of an American suburb." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Larson turned to leave, motioning for the others to follow. "Tomorrow's hearing will proceed as planned. I suggest you both be ready to move out by the weekend." After they left, Patty and Eric watched the SUV. "Drive away. They know we know," Eric said, "which means they'll move quickly now." Patty checked her watch. "Did your message get through to Sophia?" "I don't know. Even if it did, the Constellation is stationed near Jupiter. It would take them days to return, even at full speed." Eric's tablet suddenly lit up with an incoming message. It wasn't from NASA, but from an unknown source. The message contained just 4 words. "Signal received, hold position." Eric showed Patty. "It has to be from Sophia." "Then help is coming," Patty said. "But will it arrive in time?" That night, Eric couldn't sleep. He sat in his shed, monitoring the strange energy signatures beneath the neighborhood. They were growing stronger, pulsing in a synchronized pattern. Whatever the Centauri agents were planning, they weren't waiting for the HOA hearing anymore. As dawn broke, Eric's instruments detected a new signal, faint but distinct. It was coming from above, from space. He adjusted his equipment and smiled for the first time in days. The USS Constellation had changed course. It was heading toward Earth, at maximum speed. The day of the HOA hearing arrived with dark clouds gathering in the sky. Eric spent the morning calling the other homeowners who had received eviction notices. Most were too afraid to fight back, worried about legal costs and finding new homes. Only 2 agreed to join Eric at the hearing: Kim Martinez from Solar Lane and an elderly man named Frank Peterson from Nebula Court. "Safety in numbers," Patty said as they gathered in Eric's living room. "We need to stall until help arrives." "If it arrives," Eric replied quietly. His instruments showed the USS Constellation was still hours away, and the strange energy pulses beneath the neighborhood were growing stronger by the hour. Kim Martinez paced nervously. "My husband and I put our life savings into our house. We can't just lose it because my fence is supposedly 2 inches too high." Frank Peterson nodded in agreement. 30 years I've lived here. Never had a problem until this Prescott fellow took over the HOA. Eric spread out the evidence they had gathered. "Here's what we know. 6 houses form a hexagon pattern over these unusual underground formations. Northern Star Development wants all 6 properties. Their representative, Vincent Larson, has ties to military intelligence and possibly to the Centauri Imperium." "The aliens who don't like us?" Frank asked, adjusting his glasses. "Yes," Patty confirmed. "The Centauri see Earth's alliance with the Arcturus Confederation as a threat. We believe they're trying to establish a listening post here to spy on Earth's communications with our allies." Kim looked doubtful. "And they're using our HOA to do it? That seems low-tech." "It's actually brilliant," Eric explained. "No one questions local zoning disputes or property sales. It's the perfect cover for acquiring specific locations without raising national security concerns." At 5 o'clock, they drove to the community center where the hearing would be held. The parking lot was surprisingly full. Word had spread about the sudden eviction notices, and many residents were curious. Inside, the meeting room had been arranged like a small courtroom. Gerald Prescott sat at a table in front with 5 other HOA board members. Vincent Larson and his associate sat in the front row of the audience. Eric noticed at least 4 other men in suits scattered throughout the room, all with the same military bearing as Larson's team. "They've got people everywhere," Patty whispered as they found seats. Prescott called the meeting to order at exactly 7 p.m. "Tonight we're addressing several property violations that require immediate action," he announced. "First case, Eric Donovan, 1422 Galaxy Drive. Unauthorized structure in violation of community aesthetic guidelines." Eric approached the front table with his folder of evidence. "Before we begin, I'd like to question the rushed nature of these proceedings. Multiple homeowners received notices simultaneously, all with the same short timeline for correction. The board recently voted to enforce all bylaws more strictly," Prescott replied smoothly. "Now regarding your shed, I have documentation showing my structure complies with all county building codes," Eric interrupted, passing out papers to the board members. "Furthermore, the HOA bylaws specifically exempt scientific equipment used for professional purposes, which mine is." One of the board members, a woman named Carol Baker, frowned as she read the papers. "He's right, Gerald. Section 12, paragraph 3 does make that exemption." Prescott's face tightened. "The exemption applies only if the equipment doesn't alter the neighborhood aesthetic." "Then I'd like to submit photographs of 12 other backyard structures in Starlight Estates that are larger and more visible than mine, yet have received no violations," Eric continued, passing out more papers. Murmurs spread through the audience. Prescott glanced nervously at Larson, whose face had darkened. "This is irrelevant," Prescott snapped. "The board's decision hasn't been made yet," Carol Baker cut in. "That's the purpose of this hearing, isn't it? Or has the board already decided? Without proper procedure?" More murmurs, louder now. Eric pressed his advantage. "I'd also like to address the unusual pattern of these violations. 6 homeowners, including myself, all living above what appear to be natural geological formations, all receiving notices within days of each other." He unfolded a large map on the table. "And all of our properties coincidentally being targeted for purchase by Northern Star Development, a company that didn't exist 3 months ago." The room grew louder. Vincent Larson stood up. This is absurd. Northern Star is a legitimate real estate investment firm. We see potential in certain areas of this community. Is that why your people have been monitoring my house? Eric challenged. Or why your corporate filing lists addresses that don't exist? Larson's face flushed. You're making serious accusations without evidence. I have evidence, Patty called out, standing up. As a retired Air Force intelligence officer, I recognize surveillance when I see it. And I recognized you, Mr. Larson. Or should I say, Vincent Larson, discharged from military intelligence 5 years ago for selling classified information. The room erupted in chaos. Prescott banged his gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. This is out of line. Security. Remove these people. 2 of Larson's men moved toward Eric and Patty. The crowd, now fully engaged, stood between them. This is our neighborhood too, someone shouted. We have a right to know what's happening. Suddenly the lights flickered. Eric checked his phone. His home monitoring system was sending alerts. The energy signatures beneath the neighborhood were spiking dramatically. They're activating it now, he whispered to Patty. They can't wait any longer. At that moment, the community center doors burst open. Everyone turned to look. A tall woman in a crisp navy dress uniform walked in, her steps measured and confident. Lieutenant Commander Sophia Donovan surveyed the room, her gaze finally landing on her husband. Eric couldn't help the smile that spread across his face. Behind, Sophia came 4 more officers in uniform, including an older woman with admiral's insignia. I believe this meeting concerns national security matters, Sophia announced, her voice carrying easily through the now silent room. Admiral Gordon and I would like to address the board. Prescott stood frozen, his gavel still raised. Larson had gone pale, his eyes darting between the uniformed officers and the exit. This is a private HOA matter, he finally managed to say. Admiral. Gordon stepped forward. Not anymore, Mr. Prescott. This is now a matter of planetary security. She turned to Larson. And Mr. Larson, I believe we have some questions about your recent communications with certain off-world entities. As the Navy officers spread through the room, Sophia made her way to Eric's side. Her expression was professional, but her eyes softened when she reached him. Sorry I'm late, she said quietly. Got your message. The constellation is in Earth orbit now. We came as fast as we could. Eric felt relief wash over him. Just in time, they're activating something under the neighborhood. Some kind of Centauri technology. Sophia nodded. We know. That's why we brought the big guns. She glanced at Admiral Gordon, who was already coordinating with officers on her communication device. Outside, the sound of military helicopters grew louder as they approached Starlight Estates. The community center buzzed with confused voices as Navy personnel secured the exits. Outside, the thumping of helicopter blades grew louder. Residents pulled out phones to record what was happening, but a Navy officer politely informed everyone that electronic devices were temporarily restricted for security reasons. Admiral Gordon took command of the room, her voice firm but calm. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this interruption. I am Admiral Elaine Gordon of Earth Space Naval Command. What I'm about to share is classified, but given the circumstances, you deserve to know why your neighborhood has become a focus of attention. She nodded to a young officer who set up a small projector. An image appeared on the wall showing Starlight Estates from above, with glowing points marking the 6 homes that had received eviction notices. 3 years ago, a geological survey detected unusual formations beneath this subdivision. These formations are not natural. They are remnants of technology left by visitors to Earth thousands of years ago. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Eric watched as his neighbors tried to process this information. Space travel and alien races were common knowledge now, but the idea that aliens had visited Earth in ancient times was still considered fringe theory by most people. The technology was dormant until recent subspace communications with the Arcturus Confederation activated it. Admiral Gordon continued. We've been monitoring it since then. It appears to be a communication node, capable of transmitting signals across vast distances. Gerald Prescott stood up. What does this have to do with HOA violations? Admiral Gordon fixed him with a stern look. Mr. Prescott, we have evidence that you've been working with agents connected to the Centauri Imperium. Their plan was to acquire the properties above these nodes, activate the ancient technology, and establish a listening post to intercept sensitive communications between Earth and our allies. Vincent Larson suddenly made a dash for the door, but was quickly intercepted by two Navy officers. They escorted him back to his seat, where he sat stiffly, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. Sophia stepped forward, addressing the board. Lieutenant Commander Sophia Donovan, USS Constellation. 6 months ago, Naval Intelligence detected unusual communication patterns suggesting Centauri infiltration. We've been tracking their activities, which led us here. She looked at Eric with a hint of apology in her eyes. My deployment wasn't entirely what it seemed. Part of my mission was counterintelligence work tracking this very conspiracy. Eric felt a moment of surprise, but it quickly gave way to understanding. Classified missions often meant keeping secrets, even from family. Admiral Gordon continued, "The shed Mr. Donovan built contains equipment that has been helping us monitor the underground technology. Far from being a violation, his actions, though he wasn't fully aware of it, have been aiding planetary security." Carol Baker, the board member who had questioned Prescott earlier, looked confused. "You're saying Eric's astronomy equipment was actually monitoring alien technology?" "Not exactly," Eric explained. "But the deep space communication work I do for NASA created a kind of interference pattern that highlighted the energy signatures below. It was accidental at first, but once I noticed the strange readings, I began tracking them more deliberately." A sudden tremor shook the building. Lights flickered again, and a low humming sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "They've initiated the activation sequence," Sophia said urgently to Admiral Gordon. "Perimeter teams report energy spikes at all 6 locations." Admiral Gordon turned to a communications officer. "Signal the Constellation. Execute Operation Blackout." The officer spoke into her headset, and moments later, the humming sound abruptly stopped. The lights stabilized. "What just happened?" someone in the audience asked. "The USS Constellation just deployed a targeted EMP burst from orbit." "Admiral," Gordon explained, "it temporarily disabled the activation sequence." Vincent Larson laughed bitterly. "Too late. The signal already went out. My employers know what you've done." Admiral Gordon smiled slightly. "Actually, Mr. Larson, we've been feeding false data through that system for the past 12 hours. Your employers just received a detailed report about Earth defense systems that don't exist and alliance terms that aren't real." Larson's face fell as he realized he had been outmaneuvered. "Now," Admiral Gordon addressed the room, "we need to secure this area for proper containment of the technology. The Navy will be offering fair compensation to affected homeowners for temporary relocation while we work." An elderly woman raised her hand. "Does this mean we all have to leave our homes?" "No, ma'am," Sophia answered. "Only the 6 properties directly above the nodes require access. Everyone else can stay, though there will be some activity in the neighborhood for several weeks." Gerald Prescott, who had remained silent, suddenly stood up again. "This is all very convenient. The military swoops in, makes wild claims about alien technology, and takes over private property. Where's your proof?" Admiral Gordon nodded to Sophia, who walked over to Prescott and handed him a tablet. "These are satellite images of your meetings with Centauri agents at the lake house in Vermont. We have similar evidence for each board member who voted to rush these eviction notices." Prescott went pale. 2 of the other board members immediately distanced themselves from him. "Naval Security will be detaining several individuals for questioning," Admiral Gordon announced. "The rest of you are free to go, though we ask that you limit discussion of tonight's events." As the meeting broke up, Eric found himself standing next to Sophia. Despite the uniforms and officials surrounding them, it felt like they were the only 2 people in the room. "So," Eric said with a small smile, "not just routine space carrier duty?" Sophia shook her head. "I wanted to tell you, but it would have put you at risk. Though it seems you found the conspiracy on your own anyway." "Just trying to save our house," Eric replied. "I didn't expect to uncover an alien plot." Sophia took his hand, her first personal gesture since arriving. That's what I love about you. Even when you're just being you, you end up doing something amazing. Outside, Navy personnel were already setting up a perimeter around the neighborhood. Helicopters had landed in the community park, bringing equipment and more officers. Admiral Gordon approached them. Lieutenant Commander, we need to begin containment procedures immediately. Mr. Donovan, your expertise would be valuable if you're willing to assist. Eric nodded. Of course. Good, the Admiral replied. Because this is just the beginning. The technology under your neighborhood is more significant than we initially thought. The Centauri wouldn't risk this level of exposure for a simple listening post. What do you think it is? Sophia asked. Admiral Gordon looked grim. We believe it might be part of an ancient defense system, and someone just tried to turn it on. 2 months passed quickly. Spring turned to early summer, and Starlight Estates slowly returned to normal, or at least a new version of normal. Navy personnel still maintained a presence in the neighborhood, but they had traded their formal uniforms for casual clothes and blended in as supposed new residents. Eric stood in his backyard, watching workers put the finishing touches on his expanded shed. What had once been a small structure now housed an official monitoring station, complete with advanced equipment that linked directly to both NASA and Navy Space Command. The government had not only approved his modifications, but had funded significant upgrades. Looking good, Sophia said, joining him with 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Eric and sipped from the other. After the crisis, she had received a promotion to commander and a new assignment as liaison between Naval Space Command and NASA's civilian operations. The new position allowed her to be home most nights, a welcome change from her previous deployments. I never thought I'd be happy about government equipment in our backyard, Eric said with a smile, but it beats fighting the HOA. The Homeowners Association had undergone a complete reorganization, with Gerald Prescott and 2 other board members facing charges of conspiracy and espionage. The community had elected new leadership. Carol Baker, who had questioned Prescott during the hearing, now served as president with a commitment to transparency and resident involvement. Speaking of which, Sophia said, checking her watch, we should head over to the park. The community meeting starts in 20 minutes. They walked hand in hand through the neighborhood. Other residents waved or called out greetings as they passed. The shared experience of the HOA incident, as people now called it, had brought the community closer together. Most neighbors now knew each other by name, a stark contrast to the isolated way they had lived before. At the park, chairs had been set up in a semicircle near the newly installed playground. What had once been an empty green space was now a vibrant community hub. Children played on equipment that subtly concealed monitoring devices, though few residents knew this detail. Admiral Gordon, now a regular visitor to Starlight Estates, stood talking with Frank Peterson and Kim Martinez, 2 of the homeowners who had stood with Eric at the hearing. All 3 had been invited to join a civilian oversight committee for the ongoing operation. Eric, Sophia, the Admiral greeted them with a nod. Just in time, we have good news to share today. Once everyone gathered, Carol Baker called the meeting to order. Before we discuss community business, Admiral Gordon has an update on the security situation, she announced. Admiral Gordon stepped forward, her casual clothes a change from her uniform, but her bearing still unmistakably military. As most of you know, we've been working to neutralize the ancient technology beneath your neighborhood, she began. I'm pleased to report that the containment measures have been successful. The nodes have been isolated and can no longer be activated remotely. A murmur of relief passed through the crowd. Furthermore, she continued, with help from the Arcturus Confederation, we've determined that the system was indeed part of an early warning defense network. If fully activated, it could have generated a signal powerful enough to disable modern communication systems across the entire region. Eric listened intently. Over the past weeks, he had worked closely with Navy scientists to understand the technology. What they discovered had changed humanity's understanding of Earth's ancient history and its place in the galaxy. The good news, Admiral Gordon said, is that we've adapted portions of the system for our own defense network. With proper monitoring, it now serves as an early detection system for unauthorized subspace communications. In simple terms, it helps us spot potential Centauri spies before they can act. After the Admiral finished her update, Carol Baker took over to discuss regular neighborhood matters. The meeting shifted to discussions of summer events, landscaping, plans, and a new neighborhood watch program. Later, as people mingled and enjoyed refreshments, Patty Washington approached Eric and Sophia. "I just got word," she said quietly. "They sentenced Larson today, 20 years for espionage." "And Prescott?" Eric asked. 15 years. Turns out he didn't know the full extent of the plan. He thought it was just a real estate scheme with some illegal surveillance. Had no idea about the alien technology angle. Sophia shook her head. Some people will do anything for money. As the sun began to set, Eric and Sophia headed home, walking slowly to enjoy the pleasant evening. Their neighborhood looked much the same as it always had. Neat houses with well-kept lawns, but Eric now knew what lay beneath the surface, both literally and figuratively. "Hard to believe it's only been 2 months since I got that eviction notice," Eric said as they reached their driveway. "Would you have done anything differently?" Sophia asked. "If you'd known what would happen," Eric thought for a moment. "I would have built a bigger shed from the start," he joked, then grew serious. "No, I wouldn't change anything. This whole experience showed me what matters: our home, our community, and having you here." Sophia smiled and squeezed his hand. "I'm glad it worked out this way. My new assignment is more important than I expected. The Arcturus ambassadors specifically requested that I continue as their liaison after how we handled the Centauri plot." Inside, their home, Eric noticed a message waiting on his secure tablet. It was from NASA headquarters, confirming his new role as head of a special research division focused on ancient extraterrestrial technology. His accidental discovery had earned him a promotion of his own. That evening, they sat on their back porch watching the stars appear. The distant glimmer of orbital stations and spacecraft created moving points of light among the fixed stars. Somewhere up there, the USS Constellation patrolled near Earth, a guardian against further Centauri attempts. "You know what's funny?" Eric said after a while. "If our HOA hadn't been so strict about that shed, none of this would have happened. The Centauri might have succeeded." "Sometimes the smallest things lead to the biggest changes," Sophia replied. "A garden shed, an eviction notice, a Navy uniform." Eric laughed. "I still wish I could have seen Prescott's face when you walked into that hearing in full uniform." "It was pretty satisfying," Sophia admitted with a smile. As night settled fully, over Starlight Estates, lights came on in houses across the neighborhood. From above, they might have looked like stars themselves, forming constellations of human life. And deep beneath them, ancient technology now served a new purpose, protecting the community that had almost been torn apart because of it. Eric put his arm around Sophia's shoulders. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries about the universe and humanity's place in it. But for tonight, they were simply home, together in a house that no one would try to take from them again.